What's up, Leafs fans? Welcome back to Leafs Digest. If you were with us yesterday after the game, we went live. We debuted our new stream setup, a nice little chat box on the screen, some motion going on. We got some things moving around. But if you were in that live or if you've watched that video since, you could sense a little bit of panic from Leafs fans in the chat. People calling in, letting us know they were a little bit afraid of what was going on and the trend that the Leafs were heading in right now. And it was kind of a little bit repeating what we saw from earlier in the season, where we ended up going into that weird little slump where it was the overtime loss against the Rangers, where we lost the game strictly because of Shesterkin from the Rangers. We absolutely outplayed them, but he manages to steal the game, and it rolls right into this downward spiral where we get absolutely dummied by the Pittsburgh Penguins. There was a bunch of other losses mixed in there as well, and then it was panic time in Leafs Nation, and it's starting to kind of give off the same vibe again. But the ultimate question here that's come out of what's gone on, especially in the last 5 games on this road trip, is this Leafs team Cup ready? And now, to provide a little bit of context behind it, a lot of the conversation going on is not just about, oh, we're losing some points or we're having a tough time on this road trip, because there's been a couple wins. You pull one out against St. Louis, you pull one out against Vegas, and you lose the game in overtime to Colorado, so you end up getting a point from it. And I don't think people are necessarily worried about the fact that we got the points or we got the wins, whatever. It's about the way the games were being played. There was bad habits creeping in, and there was a lot of old Leaf-like hockey going on in front of us. I mean, Josh, I'm just going to ask you point blank right now, especially considering the topic, the trend of this video right here. Do you think the Leafs are Cup ready? Is this an overreaction based on the last 5 games?
I'm going to give a loaded answer, but in theory, I do think the Leafs are Cup ready. I just think you look at the roster and already the fact that we've gotten a lot more playoff experiences. We've felt those burdens in the postseason. We've had a lot of growth, no doubt, and the team is very talented. And I think we always get that Capitals comparison, of course. Took them forever to break through. They've always had superstar talent. So if you asked for the 5 seasons leading up to their Stanley Cup, are the Caps Cup ready? A lot of people would have said yeah, but they obviously would have had their doubts like now, because the Caps had a long streak of being tragically eliminated, and the Leafs are going through their own right now. I will admit we have a little bit more, I don't know what to say, really the word for this, but the Leafs tend to have a bit more lapses than I think those Caps teams did, where you look at them during the regular season and you're like, what a friggin' joke. Those Caps teams were pretty solid and why they were expected to always win. Whereas with the Leafs, it's more you look at them on paper and you're like, this team could do some damage. But there's still those bad habits, like you're saying, that we see creeping in from years past that just don't really go away. So I want to say, in theory, yeah, they are Cup ready. And I mean, you look at the regular season tallies, and more importantly, the stats right now on this team, on the advanced stats, they're number 1 in faceoffs won with 55.5%. You look at special teams, as much as we want to talk about Marner not being too good, they still really aren't hurting on the power play. They're tied for second at 29.5%. Inversely, on the penalty kill, they're at 7th in the league at 83.5. Like, across the board, this team takes care of a lot of categories that a good winning teams need to.
Yep.
So I think that even, I'm saying in theory, well, in practice, they're really doing well, as we can see by the stats. But it's just, we got to see it in the postseason. But I'm also really reluctant to say they aren't Cup ready, because I don't want to ship out a team that might be very soon, like the Capitals were a few years ago.
I think you're right in terms of, it's not just in theory anymore. You look at it and it's, hey, this is a good team on paper. This is a good team. Well, no more. They're putting it to the test. Their penalty kill has stepped up. That was a problem last year. And now all of a sudden it's one of the most redeeming qualities of this Leafs team in terms of we can rely on that penalty kill to be solid night in, night out. And it has to do with some of the pickups Kyle Dubas made. And honestly, I do have to say this right now. I forgot to say it on the live. You and I put out that video about Kyle Dubas's best signings ever. You know who the one guy was that we forgot to mention?
I know, we forgot Cam.
Yeah, and that's a terrible, terrible mistake by both of us there to leave him out, because he is an incredible, incredible pickup in terms of what he's been able to provide, especially considering we looked at him and said, what the hell is this guy? He can't even score goals, he can't get points, he can't do nothing. And it was like, okay, all right, I got why he's here. And by the way, he's quadrupled his career high in goals or whatever it was.
Yeah, with 4.
Yeah, so it's been a good pickup. So forgot to mention that, had to mix that in here. Here's the thing, okay? And as far as if this team is Cup ready, I think in years past we've looked at it and gone, man, we're missing that piece. We need the Nick Foligno. We need to go and acquire the big bruiser at the deadline. We need to get this. And it was a lot of the forwards. We needed depth. We need depth. We need a piece to fit in the top six. I'm going to say still no, we're not cup ready, but it's not because of the forwards anymore. And the other thing is, it's not because of goaltending. And I'm not going to sit here and completely put all the blame on Freddie Anderson. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's right. I think there was a lot of problems ahead of him that kind of led to his overall success here in Toronto. So I don't think it's all on him. You kind of see how it's working out for him in Carolina. But he also wasn't completely trustworthy going in. There was times where Freddie could lose you a game, and that was very possible. Now, I do have a lot of confidence in Jack Campbell. That may just be over-optimism. That's kind of yet to be determined for myself. I'm going to figure that one out as things go along. But it's the defense for me. I'm really, really concerned at this point about the defense. And I'm just going to run through this really quickly, and we can kind of get to the D. But it's just, you look at the forwards, we've got the big four. And you looked at, okay, maybe they don't have some of the jam. I only have questions about one guy in that forward group of the core four if they have the jam. And hopefully they can prove
Marner?
it. It's Marner, yeah. Because I looked at, I never had the question about Tavares. He always brought it, whether or not the points were there. His ability to compete and step up and show it was there. Sometimes the production wasn't completely there, but he showed up. Nylander was one guy who got constantly ragged on for not having the level of compete. He was the one guy who stepped up above and beyond last year against the Habs and really elevated his game. And he's been a really good player all year this year. He's kind of kept that going. He has his nights where he just falls asleep, but that's also William Nylander. It happens. And it's also players in the NHL. Guys do that. Like, it's 82 games. It's a long season. You're on a 5-game road trip. Sometimes you're just going to take a nap for a game. You don't want it to happen, but it happens. And then Matthews takes his game to another level as well. He's really got that competitive nature. You can see it. He's just, last night wasn't the best night to showcase that, but for the most part of this season, he's had it. Now, Marner's kind of the only guy that I'm like, all right, do you still got it, or do you have that in you? We're yet to find out, but he did win a Memorial Cup, so he clearly has some type of championship winning ability. But then you look at the Leafs' depth, it's not a question anymore. Kasha, Kampf, Bunting, Mikheyev, 6 goals in 8 games since he's come back. Kerfoot has been a perfect second-line left winger. And then if you really want to look down there, you have some depth in Richie, Spezza, Simmons, and Engvall. Like, there's some guys there. Richie obviously on taxi squad right now, but if he can kind of hop up, there's depth there. It's the D. It's really the D. We're missing D, and we're missing someone who can elevate this D to the next level.
I think, what kind of speaks to this, and I don't want to drag down Sandin or Liljegren, but I don't know how many other fan bases would see these two players come up, especially Liljegren, and go as crazy as we have. I think that shows you how starved we are for new defensive talent, because those kids are good. Like, they're really good, but we act like, we just drafted Erik Karlsson half the time talking about Sandin. So I think that, we've been a little starved on the back end for a while now. Even when we were seemingly deep on the back end, we had players like Phaneuf and Gardner who would just make mistakes every other shift. So we've always kind of gambled on our blue line. We've never found a solid anchor to help just kind of guide other defensemen as they come in and build a culture on the blue line. I do think Morgan Riley's becoming close to that, but in some senses, we'd rather it be someone with TJ Brody's outlook and skill set where they learn the game from a more fundamental standpoint. But I agree with you in nature of what you're saying, that we could use a back end upgrade and hopefully a right-handed defenseman, because we are so loaded on the lefties. Going into playoffs with a little bit more variety wouldn't hurt. And just in general, bringing in another body who's capable, large, and emphasizes defense first. So maybe not a guy like Klingberg. He would fit from a lot of angles, but no matter what you're doing at trade deadline, if you're Kyle Dubas, I'm hoping you're kicking the tires on any big name defenseman that can come and help us win a cup, because it does seem like that's one of the separating pieces from us being cup ready. And to be honest, Phil, as much as we could have scapegoated the depth, I think you look back and just say that it's always been the defenseman. We scapegoat the depth on offense because they had their issues, but it's always been the defensive depth that's really held the Leafs back in the whole entire previous decade.
Well, think about this, okay? There was points in time where we were running through D-pairings where it was Marty Marins followed by Justin Hall.
That's always been the issue. Seriously.
And Cody Ceci.
It's a revolving door of clowns. We can't keep up like this. But that's what happens when you get lucky enough to draft William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and Austin Matthews. I mean, you got your contracts wrapped up in there, and then Johnny T wants to come home. All of a sudden, I mean, you got to make it work out of the back end. They've taken a calculated gamble here going with this approach. And I think that when you look across the league, it's harder to find what they bring. So I don't mind building this way because you can pull out a bunch of guys from the AHL who can do half decent for a year. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not going to shade Justin Hall too much, but I'm happy we got the goal scoring, but the defense definitely needs work.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem comes in here. We talked about how good that TJ Brody signing was. Since Morgan Riley signed his contract, him and Brody have been incredible together. Riley has performed really well. He's actually, I mean, you look at a night where it was 6-3, and him and Brody both played well. Like, they didn't look bad. They played fine. They weren't difference makers in terms of taking this team to another level, but I can't sit here and say, man, what the hell were those guys doing, because they played well. And then you look at Saini and Liljegren, maybe they're just not ready for that role together. Maybe they're not ready to be put into that position as a pair. Maybe
I think that's the key.
Yeah, and I think you're right in terms of you go and get that guy. Maybe you slide Muzzin with Liljegren, and then you put that new acquisition with Saini, or vice versa, whoever you get, whatever shot they are. Maybe their styles don't work together. You have to switch them around. Maybe that's what it is. But I think that you look at how this D has gone too, where, okay, Muzzin's going to get the D pair of Liljegren. Well, he gets him for a game, and then Muzzin's not having the greatest season so far, so things don't look beautiful. And now we can't go back to that, and then they don't get the chemistry going. Well, Liljegren and Saini do have the chemistry, but they're newer to this level of competition on a nightly basis and soaking these minutes. I mean, the fatigue can kind of wear in. The fact that you are as young as you are and you haven't played against this level of competition could be a bit difficult for them to adjust to. Maybe they just do need that D partner who can stabilize them a little bit until they can get past this hump, and they can just be guys who can just eat minutes every night.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back. I don't know when we had a defenseman that would be on our blue line that really embodied that kind of all the traits we're describing right now. I don't know even the closest guy we've had to that, because you look at Phaneuf, like, who was our captain. Everyone hated him. He was a pylon. Like, even now, Morgan
I think he
Riley,
was in the wrong role in Phaneuf's defense. I think he got put into
I don't think he was a useless player by any means.
Yeah,
I thought he was like really. I thought he actually was very talented, but just like the first line minutes with the responsibility of being a captain, I just it didn't speak to his skill set. Like, he could have been a bit more reserved or like eased into it a bit more with the Leafs. But I don't know. As far as I can look back, having someone that could have been, a teacher to the guys on defense, like, I feel like we don't even really have that per se. It's tough. I guess TJ Brody will definitely be doing his thing, but someone to help guide the younger dudes would definitely be appreciated. And like we said earlier, a right-handed shot is something we have one of on our blue line right now. So to get some more of that in would really help us as well. But it's the defense that's been slacking.
Yeah, I just had to do a quick think there. Yeah, it is one right hand. Well, I mean, I guess when Hall comes back, it's two right-handed, because Liljegren is right-handed as well. But yeah,
ideally you're not playing with him in your lineup, but you're
yeah,
right. You have another righty there.
Yeah, and that's the part of the problem too, right? Hall goes out, Liljegren gets in. I got no problem with Liljegren going back in Saturday against the Islanders. I'd love to see him just get another chance, maybe try to keep that or get your confidence back up. But the problem just becomes, like, what are the D pairs? Because you look at it, okay, Liljegren goes up with Muzzin. Now Sanin's stuck with Dermott. And, I mean, we can say what we want about Dermott and how he hasn't been terrible, like, this year. But last night, man, that was rough. Like, he was real bad last night.
See, I didn't watch the game last night because I had to do the Raptors live stream, but Dermott's been my guy recently. I've been happy with everything I've been saying about Dermott, but he had a rough night last night.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And the problem is that I know, I'm sorry. And I've been there with you when you're like, oh yeah, he's playing well. Like, yeah, he is. But last night was one where it's just like, no. The takeaway is just bad. It was bad. And the problem becomes when, and I mean, maybe this is a bit of a harsh assessment, but, and it's recency bias a little bit here, but it's his lows are just so low. When he has that bad game, it's last night bad game. It's insane shimmy shakes and freaking out. And I know it's funny, but it's like, That's what happened. And it's getting panicky in the corner and turning pucks over and then losing your man because you're overcompensating for something else and then making bad turnovers and not getting the pucks out of the zone. And it's just like, I know that's so cliche hockey, like pucks in deep, pucks on net, but it's like, man, you just weren't doing that. You just lost all concept of just playing simple hockey.
And that's crazy to me, though, because Travis Dermott, it's like, okay, man, your job's on the line here. You might not even be in the league. Just tone it back a little bit. They're not asking him to ramp it up. And, like, it's just, that's
yeah,
a crazy
no one,
bet on
yeah,
yourself
no, you're
mentality.
right. You're right. No one said to him, Muzzin's out. You got to be the guy. There's no,
Yeah,
if someone said that to them, fire him today.
No, exactly. Because Dermott, I mean, if you can get him just playing a simple game without much responsibility, he's been great recently. But yeah, with Muzzin out now, and you're saying last night he just was a big reason of why we ended up losing 6-3 and choking that game away, then that sucks. Then it really does. But I can't speak that much to that. I have been happy with my guy Travis recently, but I could see the inexperience of Sandin or Liljegren, either one playing with him, really catching up in a moment like that. Because I mean, as much as even if he is playing a bit better, he's not like a veteran D-man that can help bring him up. Like, that's the thing that I've really been saying. It's like, who's the culture guy in the room for the D-men? Because you could look at Jason Spezza with the forwards. You could look at John Tavares. You can look at Austin Matthews as someone who's going to guide and, like, kind of just lead by example. Out of the back door, it's TJ Brody defensively, and then kind of it's a toss-up with most other players. Morgan Riley's been great. I just, we've never had a bona fide, like, top 10 at his position leader on the defensive end for so long. And like, I don't think we're going to go and get that at this trade deadline. It's just me being a Leafs fan wishing we had that, because it would bring this team to the immediate answer of cup ready. But it's just, we'll need to improvise. And I'm not saying we can't win a cup like this. Clearly I've been attesting that in theory, I think we're still right there. It's just the details need to come together, right? And we got a young blue line at the bottom.
Well, and I think you're bang on, because when you talk about Spezza and that leadership there, one of the reasons it didn't work out with Joe Thornton is because he couldn't really still bring it with his play. And it's not to say that Spezza's going out there and scoring 100 points and just lighting it up, and we don't need him to do that, but it's just that he can be relied upon to be a guy to play on the second penalty kill or power play, and take face-offs at timely moments and be an important player. And he has a definitive role of what he does on the ice, and he does it very well. And then beyond that, he brings the leadership ability. He brings that kind of stuff. So you can go, okay, you got that. And I think that's where it reflects with Jake Muzzin right now. I think last year, he's a guy who really elevated it, because you can look at him and go, man, look how steady Muzzin is back there. Look at how much good he's doing for us. And then this year, it's kind of a flip situation of, man, maybe he's that guy who's super vocal and everyone wants to listen to, but he's just not performing. And it's not that now I think you're a clown because you're not performing, but now it's, I'm looking at you and you're struggling, and I physically, maybe you're not looking at the guy and going, man, I got to get to that, because you don't want to be at that. It's not good right now.
No, you bring up a really good point, and even I didn't emphasize that enough, is that we have very few guys that, that balance advising and doing it pretty well as Jason Spezza does it. So, man, I got to say, looking at the situation out of the back end, Muzzin was great for us last year and was sort of that dude, but now he's injured. He's been down as well. I feel like our whole confidence on the back end is shook a little bit, and we need someone to step up and be like, play in the image of what this guy's doing. And right now, Morgan Riley has done that at points, definitely. I just, even he's still, I don't want to call him relatively young. He's sort of a vet at this point, but you get what I mean. We haven't had a culture of steadiness and winning out of the back door in virtually forever. And I'm not saying we're going to correct it at this trade deadline, but if we can get it even a little bit better, it does bring you an inch closer to being cup ready.
Yeah, and here's the final point that I'm making. It's kind of more of a question for you. I'm kind of curious of where you sit on this one, but it's okay, so in your opinion, I think you're going to be on the same page as me. When Justin Hall comes back, even if he's equivalent to, he's not better than any of those defensemen who are currently in that six right now. Would you agree?
He shouldn't play in the Marlies top four.
Okay.
No, that was really harsh. That was out of pocket. No, I don't think he's beating anyone out for a spot when he comes back.
Yeah. Okay. So if he's not beating anyone out for a spot, I don't think he is. I think at right now at maximum he could be the equivalent to someone in there. Biega or Dermott Liljegren on a not so great night right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Not Sandin, not Muzzin, not Brody, not Riley. Okay, so he's really looking at two defensemen who he's probably maybe on par with. Now, Muzzin comes back. So let's say Hall's not getting back into this lineup. Muzzin comes back. He's pushing one guy out. It's probably Biega, just based on how this season's gone. So now you're looking at a top six of Riley, Brody, Muzzin. Let's go Liljegren, Sandin, Dermott.
Yeah.
That's not strong enough, and it's very, very young.
I mean, you go from like a top three of like, oh wow, we're doing something here, to a bottom three of like looking like an AHL team still. Like it's
more just because they don't have a supporting cast.
Well,
like each of those pieces, like Dermott would need a vet, Liljegren would need a vet, Sandin would need a vet, and you don't have enough to match them to those guys.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, man. Like, look at the forwards, right? You got Johnny T on the second line, Austin Matthews, who you can just go out there and like, follow him around on the ice, man. Good things will happen. He can lead by example. And then you also look down at the very bottom of the line. If you have Spezza, all of our leadership and talent is concentrated in those top three defensemen. And I feel like when you get one of them injured now, your whole second and third pairing are like, who's the guy here, right? Like, does Sandin need to step up now and like teach a fellow kind of like young player in the league how to like operate on the blue line in the big leagues? Like, I just, to me, even just having someone there like a Bogosian at this point would be so nice. I kind of undervalue Bogosian when he was here, to be completely honest, because he's someone that demands a little bit of respect and can cultivate a culture of like strong defense and confidence in the NHL. But yeah, it's so top to bottom. It's so top heavy, and then now with Muzzin out, it's just kind of I don't want to say hopeless in the bottom four. It's definitely not, but just so far from being cup ready. And that's where I'm like, the team itself, I think in theory, ready to do it. But that's just the one part that kind of holds you up from being like, I don't know. Maybe we do have a little bit of work to do with the trade deadline.
Yeah, and it's nicer to know, I think, going into this deadline that the real whole of, or what we're needing, what we're missing is solely we can narrow in on, okay, let's improve defensemen, because I believe that is the area we need to improve on. Whereas last year you looked at it and you went, we could probably get a D, we need a backup goalie, and we need a forward. That's a lot of pieces. I mean, Dubas did a very, very good job of acquiring each of those pieces in there. But now if you can go into this and say, we just got to get a defense, you focus your time, your energy, your effort on finding that defenseman who can fit in there, who can fit in the salary cap, who will work well with this team. And then if you so happen to pick up another depth forward just to help out, or you find yourself these situations where another guy presents himself along the way, after you focused on getting that one piece, you're in a good spot. Last year we were going into it going, we need this, this, and this. I think he checked all three boxes. Foligno didn't work out because he got injured, and I think that's a key piece. But just narrowing down, hey, we're looking for a defenseman this year. I think that's a good spot to be in. But Leafs fans, we'll see how things go. Let us know in the comments if you think this team is cup ready. I think we're kind of both on the page of they're very, very close. And I think we could have said over the past couple of years they should be cup ready, but they clearly were not cup ready. Hopefully this can be the year we can get that piece to go above. I'm kind of sitting here, I think Josh, on the same page in terms of if we can improve the blue line, if we can get a guy in there to help that out and more balance things, we will be in a much better position to be cup ready, to go and actually compete and be a legitimate contender for the Stanley Cup this year. If we can acquire those pieces, we can take that next step. Leafs fans, let us know in the comments below what you think. Are they cup ready? What are they missing? What do they need? Who do they need? Let us know in the comments. Like this video. Make sure you hit subscribe. Come back. We will be putting out some more videos before the next game, but we will definitely be doing a post game after the New York Islanders game, Saturday, January 22nd at 7 p.m. Leafs fans, we'll see you guys then. Keep believing.
Signing off.